This podcast is part of the Gun Rights Radio Network. Podcasting freedom.
Hello and welcome to the Shooting the Breeze podcast. This one really doesn't have a number because it's sort of a half cast, and I probably just owed royalties to the unnamed trucker over on the Road Gunner podcast for using the half cast moniker. But at any rate, I wasn't able to get a podcast done last week, and I probably forgot to mention I am Walt from WaltNPA.com and all that happy-go-lucky stuff. But I wasn't able to get a podcast put together last week. And I'm on my way to Cabelas in Hamburg, PA, and I thought, you know, it's a half an hour ride. I'll strap the camera onto something in my car. It's a little flip cam, by the way, and you know, I'll record a podcast along the way. It'll allow me to get something published when I said I would, and it'll give me something to do in the car for the half hour or so ride to and from. So, what was going on that I wasn't able to get a podcast done last week? If you listen to episode 50 of Shooting the Breeze, I had mentioned that I was going to Orlando, Florida for the IPCPR convention, which is basically, it's a retailer-only big cigar and pipe expo. So, it's just a big retail convention. Manufacturers come out, you know, they set up booths, retailers come out, they buy from the manufacturers, there are show deals, things like that. And as a member of the press from Stogie Review, I was able to attend and cover the event and, you know, put out news on new products and things. I went down with Jerry Bryan and Charlie from StogieReview.com. We did a tremendous amount of coverage. I think we had something like 65 or so videos from the show floor, and, you know, we were very proud of that. We spent a lot of time editing, you know, on the fly while we were down there, uploading from the hotel room, which had just horrible Wi-Fi connection, or horrible internet service. And, you know, we did the best we could, and then came home and just got everything else done in a very short period of time so that we could push all of that content out to Stogie Review sort of immediately. And, you know, that's been keeping me pretty busy. I just finished up editing more or less the last of the videos that I recorded. I have one that's just incredibly long. It's about an hour long, and I'm not really looking forward to editing it, so I haven't yet. But that's been keeping me busy throughout the past couple of days, and ultimately why I wasn't able to record another podcast since last week's episode. So here we are with this half-cast sort of. So what do we got going on in this little half episode? Obviously, I can't read you the news from the car. It would not be safe. So I am going to touch on one particular news item very briefly, just because there was an email that came along with it, someone pointing it out to me, and I just couldn't understand the logic, so I kind of wanted to talk it out on camera. So you're aware of what I was doing and why I wasn't able to get a podcast together. Contest is running for August, for the month of August, for a signed copy of Shoot, Your Guide to Shooting in Competition by Julie Golub. Really simple. All you have to do is head over to the contest page, click on a link which will open up a PDF document, and print out the target. Stand 10 yards from the target, fire as many rounds as you want at the target, and get 3 in the bullseye, and you're entered. Just take a picture of your target, post it in the comments section, and you're golden. Winner will be selected at random, all that good stuff, yada yada, you know the details. For more particulars, head over to WaltNPA.com. On the home page, there'll be a big slider up top. Wait until the picture of Julie Golub's book appears, click it, and you're good to go. So, this one piece of news that I wanted to talk about. By now, you have heard about the Sikh temple shooting in, was it Wisconsin? I think it's up north. But at any rate, there was a gunman that went into a temple. He started shooting. Some people died, and it was a pretty bad situation. I wasn't aware that it happened until after the fact. It was probably a couple of days after the fact. I got an email from a friend of mine, which said in a nutshell, hey, check this out, you know, he's a churchgoer on a regular basis, and one of the places he never carries his church. He'd never considered it before, and this situation has sort of opened his eyes to the potential problems that come along with not carrying a gun everywhere you go, or everywhere you're legally permitted to go. So if you're not aware of the Sikh shooting, look it up. It's probably everywhere at this point. And if you listen to podcasts, you probably heard it by now. You've probably heard everything that goes along with it by now. So get yourself familiarized with it, and then here's my opinion. I really don't have much of an opinion on the shooting itself, but the email from my friend was interesting because I couldn't quite wrap my head around why he would consider church sort of like a sacred place that a gun was not permitted. I've done weddings and funerals and things like that. I've always carried a gun. It's just the thought of it being frowned upon by churchgoers or a pastor or a priest, it never really crossed my mind. It's one of those things where it's legal and concealed is concealed, so I'm really not concerned about it. I've been kind of wrapping my head around this for the last couple of minutes, trying to come up with a really interesting way to formulate my opinion, but the really poor one that I came up with is this. It's sort of like saying, okay, I'm going to visit so-and-so in the maternity ward at the hospital. They just had a baby, we're going to go visit. But, it's a good place with good intentions, and everyone is there, is happy, and it's a maternity ward. What could go wrong? So when I climb in my car and drive there, I'm not going to wear my seatbelt. It just seems kind of stupid, right? There's potential problem between when you walk out your front door until you get to that place where firearms are frowned upon. And then this is where my analogy sort of falls apart, because your seatbelt isn't required once you get into the maternity ward, but you got to kind of forgive me. I'm doing this completely on the fly. But you kind of get where I'm going with this. There's the potential for problem to and from this place, and then there's the potential problem in that place. So even if you consider in this case a church, completely safe, there is that far off chance that something bad could happen. Do you want to take that risk? Do you not want to carry a gun just so that maybe your conscience feels a little better about the whole situation? Personally, I'm really not concerned about it, and conscience be damned. If I'm going to a church, I generally have a gun on me. It's nothing against the church or the pastor or the priest or anything like that, but it kind of is what it is. Another interesting thing that came out of this is last week I was talking to a friend of mine, Scott, actually, and he was telling me he was getting gas or something, and was filling up his car, and there was a pastor or something on the other side of the pump, and they struck up a conversation. I guess the Aurora shooting came up, and they started talking about what was going on, and the pastor made mention that, don't tell my congregation, but I carry a gun, or I keep a gun under the pulpit just in case anything were to happen. And I thought that was really interesting. I had heard of that before, but hearing it again, just so recently, I thought that was kind of cool. You've got a pastor that's trying to protect himself, protect the congregation, and all in all, it's just a really cool thing, I think. So I think I've beat that horse to death. So we're moving right along. All right. Well, we're kind of going to do this out of order, but I can see Cabelas in the distance, and I don't want to do the cigar and drink pairing after I put the cigar down. Or after I come back out of the store and it's been sitting for a few minutes. But the drink that I'm pairing this with is Dunkin' Donuts coffee. It's 10:30 in the morning. It's certainly that coffee hour. It's a Dunkin' Donuts K-Cup, which, while they're very good, they're not nearly as good as coffee direct from Dunkin' Donuts itself, like when they make it. But it's convenient. So Dunkin' Donuts coffee, I've talked about it to death. It's easy enough to find. Just go out and look for Dunkin' Donuts. They'll have it. The cigar, on the other hand, is the Drew Estates Papa Fritas, and I don't have the band handy, but it's a little cigar with a footband on it that says Papa Fritas, and the cigar is it's sort of like a cousin to the Liga Privada line. This is an IPCPR trade show sample. It's in a small format, Corona size, and it delivers lots of flavor. It's got a nice spicy component to it. It's a tiny little aggressive on the throat, but it could be because the cigar is kind of young. I mean, it's not set to release just yet, and it's a trade show sample. They're generally not quite the same. Good solid cigar, good flavor. I think it may be mixed fill, but I'm not quite sure. Which, if it is, it should bring the price point down considerably. So you're looking at a cousin to a cigar that costs, between 10 and 12 bucks in a smaller format. So I'm going to guess maybe 8 or less, just kind of off the top of my head. If you're interested in trying this cigar, I would suggest going through my preferred retailer, which is Buckhead Cigar in Atlanta, Georgia. You can pick up the phone and give Mike a call at 404-844-0400. He also has a website, askthecigarguys.com. It's not a retail site. However, it is a listing of pricing on all the cigars that Mike carries that are new or featured. All of the pricing on that website includes shipping. And so basically what you see is what you pay, kind of a scenario. I think that about covers it. Mike is also on social media if you're interested in just kind of feeling him out before you put your order in. He's on Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus as Buckhead Cigar. So when you call and place your order, tell him Walt sent you, and you will not only be supporting a fellow cigar guy, but Mike is also a big gun guy as well. Well, I am on my way home from Cabelas. I think I spent about 15 minutes inside there. And just so that we can jumble this podcast around again and do more things out of order, I want to talk about the reason why I was going to Cabelas and my general experience. So, a couple of weeks ago, I picked up a Glock 19 for concealed carry. And I needed self-defense ammunition for it. I wasn't willing to carry the same full metal jacket target loads that I carry to shoot IDPA and USPSA and stuff like that. So I wanted to get up here and pick up some Hornady critical defense. Cabelas generally has it on sale all the time for like $19.95. It's the best price I've seen on it. So I thought, I'll just run up here, I'll pick some up, be nice and easy. I have a Cabelas gift card, so it'll all work out in the end. So I ran up here, I picked up a box of the Critical Defense in 9mm, the 115 grain hollow point. And one of the other things I wanted to do was pick up a dedicated self-defense magazine. Right now I have 3 magazines for the Glock 19. The Gen 4 comes with 3. So I wanted to pick up at least one spare so that I could load up the spare with self-defense ammunition and then just pop out the spare magazine when it comes time to go to the range and shoot IDPA. This way I wasn't transferring ammunition. It just seems like a headache. So I wanted to get 1 or 2 spare Glock 19 mags just for self-defense ammunition. So I find the Critical Defense, it's price as marked, no big deal. I pick up a box of that, and then I headed over to the magazine aisle where, they just carry various magazines, lots of Glock magazines, Smith & Wesson, Beretta, all that. All of their magazines are in one place. We're talking gun, like actual insert bullets, gun magazine kind of thing, not paper and flip through the magazines. But you got that by now. So I start looking around, and my first impression is, wow, all these magazines seem pretty expensive. Maybe it's just these different magazines. Maybe they're not just as popular. So I look through and I look, and finally I find Glock 19 magazines, a whole shelf full of them, or a whole rack full of them, for $34.99 or $35.99. You have got to be kidding me! I can buy them online for $19.99 with free shipping. They go on sale at such and such a website every so often. If I don't want to wait for them to go on sale, I can run down to the Handgunner, which is a small sort of like mom and pop gun shop in Topton, Pennsylvania, and I can buy them for $24.99. So, or $23.99, $24.99, something like that. So where does Cabelas get off charging $35 for a Glock 19 magazine? That's insane. But I guess it's one of those things where, okay, all the competitors' magazines are $35 to $42 a piece. Glock is just too inexpensive, so we'll jack up the price. It's incredible, the markup on those magazines. So needless to say, I didn't buy a single one. I will buy them from my local shop and pay out-of-pocket money. I'll use the remainder of my gift card for something else at some other time. Another thing that I found was pretty amazing was I was browsing the used gun rack, just, for the hell of it. I was looking at some of the shotguns. Remington 870s, I think they take the new gun price, knock off $10, and sell it used. It was like $480 for for a Remington 870 Express. It wasn't even the Super Magnum or anything like that. It was just a standard 870 Express. It didn't make any mention about coming with extra barrels or anything like that. It was just for something. It was incredible. So, needless to say, I'm not a big fan of Cabelas. I mean, it's a fun. Don't get me wrong. It is a fun place to go. I like taking my daughter there. My wife, my daughter will go to Cabelas on a night when it's not so busy. Weekends are just the place is mob. But like, on a Thursday night or a Wednesday night or something like that, maybe my wife, my daughter will go up there, and my daughter just likes looking around at the fish pond and all the mounts on this giant mountain that they have in there. We'll walk through the little aquarium section, and they have this whole like forest deer area full of full mounts, not just heads of deer, and it's a really fun place for kids to go, but it's just so expensive for the stuff that I want. So, I mean, there's obviously better places to go, but it is a fun store. It's good family time. I like going there, and I guess if you're going to incorporate that into your store, you're going to ultimately have to raise your prices, and that's where someplace like Cabelas winds up charging almost double what I can buy a Glock 19 magazine for online. So, a little disappointed in the pricing, but I was happy with the critical duty or the critical defense pricing. I probably should have picked up 2 boxes, but I only got 1. But that is my Cabelas experience. Well, the last thing I wanted to talk about before I kind of get going is I wanted to touch on 2 featured content pieces. Again, I'm in a car, I don't have them in front of me, so you'll just have to bear with me. The first of which is the Freedoms Network by Ken Blanchard. He runs the Urban Shooter podcast, Black Man with a Gun, and he put together this. It's basically a social media network for gun owners. It is on the Ning network, if you've ever heard of it. To be completely honest with you, I absolutely hate Ning. It's sort of like a mildly updated MySpace. I hate the layout. I hate the way it functions. Really nothing good to say about Ning except for it is one of the few options available for creating a social media site from the ground up. So they're not so much from the ground up. You're using their platform, but it's a nice way to create your own sort of MySpace for your niche topic, and in this case, it's guns. So shortly after Ken Blanchard launched it, I joined it. Not like joined it in the sense that I'm part of the network as a podcast or anything like that, but I joined the network as a user, and I've just kind of been hanging out, posting things, checking it out. It's pretty slow because it's still in the early days, but it's a fun, interesting network. As much as I hate Ning, Ken Blanchard is doing a good job creating that sort of social media site for gun owners, and I think it's kind of cool. I mean, I don't think it compares to a place like GunUp or Gunway. I think it's Gunway, where they have it's more of a tailored social media system as opposed to Ning, where it's just like a MySpace copy. But I like it. It's kind of cool. You should definitely head over to Freedoms Network and check it out. The reason why I learned about the network, I did see a press release on AmmoLand, but a lot of times when I see press releases on AmmoLand, I kind of skim them. But Daniel Shaw and John, I can't think of his last name, McGregor, from the Gunfighter Cast. Actually, I'm wearing the Gunfighter Cast t-shirt, although the logo's on the back. But they left the Gun Rights Radio Network and became part of the Freedoms Network from Ken Blanchard. And, being a big fan of Gunfighter Cast, I headed over, I checked it out, supporting Daniel and John as best I can by, joining the network, following them, and things like that. So if you are a fan of the Gunfighter Cast, nothing will change in terms of your RSS feeds or anything like that. If you're subscribed on iTunes, you're still subscribed. You're not going to lose anything. But they have a new home now in the Freedoms Network. You should definitely go check them out. And, the network sort of a thing that Ken Blanchard has put together. Well, the last thing I wanted to talk about before I let you go is one last piece of featured content from When the Balloon Goes Up. There was a post recently about it was about distances to targets during your practice, and it was one of those things where I believe Ron was practicing an IDPA classifier, or he was doing some sort of drill, and then he went to a match or something, and the target distances seemed off. When he measured it or checked it, it actually was off. And it was one of those kind of interesting things where, you know, he's practicing at a set distance, or he's doing this, or he's doing that, and he's going out of his way, sort of like I do, where he has purchased a 100-yard tape measure, a 100-foot tape measure. You know, when he sets up drills and practice sessions on his own, he's measuring them out. He's making sure he's doing everything, you know, properly. He's not pacing off the distances, that kind of a thing. And he basically posed the question, you know, like, how do you practice? Do you carry a tape measure in your range bag? And I responded back that I do. When I shoot any match, you know, one of the staples in my range bag, and it's probably one of the reasons why it's 30 pounds heavier than it needs to be, is I incorporate a bunch of crap that I probably don't need, and a 100-foot tape measure is one of those things. It's small, it's compact. It's not the type that you use for carpentry or cabinet making. It's sort of like the reel type. So it's got this little metal tab on it. You can hook it to a target stand or something, and then just walk off the distance, and this thing will kind of trail behind you. You mark off what you need, and then you reel it back up. I use that for everything. If I design a mini stage for myself, when I do a practice session, I try to make it as match-like as possible. So if I sit down and I decide I want to design a stage that focuses on reloads, so for whatever reason, you know, I put targets out 10 yards away, and then I split them. You know, I'll use 2 target stands. I'll put one target 7 yards from the center line and another target 7 yards the other way from the center line. And then the objective is to draw, fire 2, reload, fire 2, reload 1, kind of a thing. You know, and then I'll work slide lock reloads in there and things like that. But when I do that, I'm kind of anal and picky about it. I want those target distances correct. For consistency's sake, I want to be able to go to the range, you know, next week, next month, next year, and practice the same drill. And not only practice the same drill, but I'm also anal in the sense that I record all of my stuff. So if I'm shooting with USPSA targets, I'll actually score myself and jot down my time so that I have a hit factor, I have a score per target, things like that. And then I will compare side by side how I did this time and how I did on this stage next time, or you know, how I did now versus how I did before, so that I can track my progress. I do that with a lot of things. It makes for a lot of work. It makes for long range sessions because I'm spending a fair amount of time setting things up. But I think that all of that extra effort goes a long way, especially for someone like me. I want to be able to look and see the progression on paper, you know, whether I create a graph or it's just a spreadsheet where I'm comparing numbers. But I think it's very important to be able to do that, and especially if you're the type that likes to practice USPSA classifiers or the IDPA classifier, for instance. I like to, in my practice sessions, I like to mix in one classifier. So, you know, maybe I'll do like 4 mini stages, and then I'll set up a classifier that utilizes the tools that I have. So if I have 3 target stands available, I'll find a classifier that uses 3 target stands, and then I'll set it up and run it. You know, I'll run it once or twice. I'll keep track of everything, and then I'll compare it. You know, how did I shoot it now versus, you know, 6 months ago? Or if I'm in the case of a classifier, how I shot it right now stand up to the USPSA national ranking system. There are websites out there to compare your hit factor versus the nationwide system, so that you can get a general idea of what class you're shooting in. And I like doing that kind of stuff. I'm really into seeing the numbers and tracking my performance. But it was an interesting post. It brought a lot of things to mind, you know, made me think about a lot of stuff, the way I do things and all, and it's well worth checking out. So head over to When the Balloon Goes Up and check out the post about target distances. For the life of me, I can't think of what it's called, but check it out. Well, it's about time to let you go, and thank you for checking out this episode of Shooting the Breeze, the formal gun podcast of WaltNPA.com. If you're listening to this audio only, I apologize for all the road noise, cars going by, my windows down so that I can have a cigar in here. And And if you're watching the video podcast, you may be getting a little motion sickness because my camera is actually velcroed onto my passenger side visor. I've got this little action mount for my flip cam. It's meant for like bicycle handlebars and things like that. And every time I glance over, I hit a bump, I can see the visor move a little bit, and plus you've got all this stuff behind me that you can see moving. But I hope you enjoyed this little episode. Maybe I'll do more in the future. This is kind of like a great way to get little partial podcasts done, especially when I'm driving to the range. A lot of the ranges are between 45 minutes and an hour away. So if I'm shooting a match and I'm not carpooling, this is probably a really good way to do it. So I'd really appreciate your feedback on what you thought of this particular setup, whether it's worth doing again, if there are any improvements that I can make, that sort of thing. For any reason, if you'd like to contact me, you can get a hold of me at waltinpa.com. Just use your favorite email client. If you'd prefer to make it even easier on yourself, just head over to waltinpa.com, click on the contact button, and a whole host of options will pop up. You can fill in some forms and click submit. That will send an email to me. There's also some social media information there in terms of Twitter, Facebook, Google+, that sort of thing. And I'm also on the Gun Rights Radio Network forum. I have a Shooting the Breeze subsection where I post a new topic for each episode that I release. Please feel free to comment there or anywhere else you may find this information. I'm trying to use YouTube a little bit more, so if you're a YouTube user, please feel free to leave a comment there, ask questions, whatever. I'll do my best to respond to you. I'm kind of slow, but I will get to it, or I will try to get to it to the best of my ability. So that's going to do it. So again, thank you for checking out Shooting the Breeze, the formal gun podcast of waltinpa.com. I'm not quite sure what episode this will be. I guess like 50 and a half or 51. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed it. So until next week, stay safe and have fun.
You can hear Gun Rights Radio Network on Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher allows you to listen to your favorite shows directly from your iPhone, Android phone, BlackBerry, or Palm phones, on demand and on the go. Don't have Stitcher? Download it for free today at Stitcher.com or in the app stores. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio. Gun Rights Radio Network shows can be found under Sources.